Sky Athena, and in this video I'm bringing you my February wrap-up. I read 9 books in February. I haven't read that low amount of books in a month in a while. Now, out of these 9 books, 3 of them were disappointments to me, unfortunately. But the other 6 were alright to nice to very nice. There are several reasons why I didn't read that many books in February. One is that I've been doing other stuff. For example, I needed to make my statistics videos of my reading statistics in 2020. So that took up some time. I also did not participate in the usual few days each month that I do, where I read normally graphic novels, graphic memoirs, manga, illustrated children's books. I didn't do that in February, and so because of that I read a lot less books and a lot less pages. I didn't feel in the mood, and also I was reading other books. I was doing some buddy reads, which I will tell you about that soon. And also, yeah, I've just been doing other stuff. And also another reason is that I think since January I've been playing this video game that I've been loving, so some of my spare time went into that as well. And I've also been doing some cataloging of books I've bought that I then added to my database. Anyway, this month I had quite a few buddy reads. So I had a buddy read with Berna from Berna's Bookish Adventures. I had a buddy read with Emily from Novelle Novels. I had a buddy read with Olivia from Olivia's Catastrophe, and I read a book together with my friend Sarah, who is not on BookTube. And I'm now going to talk about the books in the order that I finished them. As usual, timestamps will be linked in the description down below, as well as the channels of these people that I've buddy read with. The first book I read and finished in February is Boys Don't Cry by Malorie Blackman. This book was kindly gifted to me by Olivia from Olivia's Catastrophe, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much, Olivia. This book is about a male teenager and his ex-girlfriend shows up on his doorstep one day and basically leaves him with her baby, their baby. And she leaves, and he thinks it's just temporary, but she doesn't come back. She lied, basically. And so he is stuck with a baby all of a sudden. And well, this is kind of how, like, what happens and how this impacts his life. And now Malorie Blackman has written the Noughts and Crosses series, which I have not read yet, but I do want to. I've been meaning to read that for years, but I haven't. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. Now, I read this book I think on the 1st and 2nd of February or something like that, so it's been like a month since I read this. So I can't say I remember all the details, but I remember I really like the characters. Particularly the growth you see in the main characters. Yeah, so his name is Dante. So the story is written from his perspective, as well as the perspective of Adam, who is Dante's brother. I think Dante gets more chapters, if I recall correctly, but it was also interesting to see Adam's perspective. However, I can remember some things, but I can't remember if they were spoilers or whether you knew it like earlier on in the book, so I don't really want to spoil it. And also, so the stereotypes of a black teenage parent also come into place in this. And yeah, I really like this, and I think it is one that I will reread in the future as well. So yeah, I'm going to try to keep this wrap up a bit shorter, since we have just 9 books to talk about and not like 20 plus like in most of the other months lately. So yeah. Then I finished Everybody Looking by Candice Iloh. This is a novel in verse, and I have to admit, part of the reason I picked this up is because I love this cover. It's bright and colorful, which is one of my favorite things of covers. It has multiple different bright colors. It is illustrated, it has a black person on the cover, so this cover was totally up to my alley. I really like illustrated covers of bright colors, and obviously we need to see more black people on covers, I think. So this novel is written in verse, and it is about Ada, who is going to college. So it's like kind of on the edge of young adult in terms of the main character's age. And again, it's been so long since I read this, I don't remember much. To be honest, I think I read this book in like one evening. So I was kind of tired, I wasn't really picking it all up. But I remember enjoying it. I didn't love it. Like last year in 2020, I read 4 novels and first that I absolutely loved. I liked this, but I didn't love it. But I'm not sure I can say why. I don't know. I kind of wish I'd gone beyond the ending. I remember thinking that when I had just finished it. But if you ask me what happened at the ending, I couldn't tell you. So I remember enjoying it, but it was apparently not so memorable. Probably also because I read it in one evening, feeling tired, but I wanted to finish the book sort of thing. So, but yeah, I remember liking it. So if it seems like something you would like, you could definitely look into it. Here is the synopsis if you wanted to see it. Kind of about coming of age and growing up and sexuality as well. But like I said, I'm sorry, I can't really remember. That's unfortunate, but my memory is not that great. So at least it hasn't been for like the past 10 years. So I hope you'll forgive me for that. The next book I finished is West End Girls by Jenny Colgan. This was a buddy read with Emily from Novelle Novels. Now I have previously tried to read one other Jenny Colgan book, which was, and I ended up DNFing that. So I was keen to try another book, but unfortunately this one was a disappointment, not just to me but also to Emily. She has read more of Jenny Colgan's more recent works because this was her first book, I believe. And you can tell that Emily says some of her newer books are better, so I look forward to trying those. I mean, I already own a couple, so I might as well give them a go, right? I'm not gonna go out and buy another one unless I see like a really good deal, but I already own a few. So anyway, this book is about 2 twins. This is adult chick lit. So this is about Lizzie and Penny, and they are sisters, twin sisters, and their grandmother has to go into a kind of care home, and so they get to temporarily live in her apartment, in Chelsea, which this is kind of like this rich part of London. Now I live in the Netherlands, so you'll have to forgive me that I don't know all of those details of that area, but other than what I've read about in the book. So we have the 2 twins, and we kind of see the book from their perspective. So we have Lizzie, and I have to say I liked her the best. She is all more quiet and serious and thoughtful, and she is also a plus size. And then we have Penny, who is kind of more like impulsive and extroverted. Well, this book was first published in 2006, and you can tell because there is quite a lot of fat phobia in here and body shame. And also there's a character in here, and I forget his name. English is not his first language. I think he is from Portugal. I can't remember his name now. He's a side character. But there was also some towards him by one of the other characters in this book. And so I like the story okay, but those things, just make me like it less. Now presumably if I had read this in 2006, which I didn't even know about Jenny Colgan, I think, but I wouldn't have been as disappointed. But so Penny is thin and Lizzie is plus size, and the book is really hammering on that. They mention a lot about Lizzie's size and like weight loss and stuff like that, and that character that I just mentioned, the character from I think Portugal, he is also a plus size, and this could have been so much better if there hadn't been that fat phobia and body shaming and all of that. And also the writing wasn't, this is her first book, I think, and you can kind of tell. So I'm glad to hear that later Jenny Colgan books, that at least that Emily's read, are better, because this was not it. This got a low rating from me, unfortunately. Now, I did enjoy buddy reading it with Emily, despite that neither one of us really liked the book in the end. It was a nice buddy reading experience. I always enjoy buddy reading with Emily. So yeah, I'm hoping that later Johnny Colgan books are better, but this was not it, and so yeah. Then I finished Exit Pursued by a Bear by E.K. Johnston. And this is a young adult novel on the shorter side, contemporary fiction. I bought this a few years ago when, I don't know, somebody in BookTube recommended it somewhere. This is about Hermione Winters. She is the head cheerleader, but she also gets raped and gets pregnant. It is on the back, so I'm hoping that's not a spoiler, but it does take a while for that to happen. But it's kind of the thing that is what this is on the back. So there's the star cheerleader and the pariah pregnant girl not normally meant to be the same person, sort of thing. I like this. I didn't love it, but I liked it. So the assault is part of the story, but it's certainly not the whole story. It's just about Hermione and her cheerleading. I like learning about the cheerleading. So her school is really into cheerleading. They're like famous for this. And they don't actually have like a male sports team, if that is, I can't remember what that sport is called, but a lot of American high schools, at least in movies, do these things, and then the cheerleaders cheer them on, sort of thing. This school just has the cheerleader team, which has boys and girls in it, and I really like learning about that cheerleader part. There's also, so Hermione at some point goes, she talks to the psychiatrist, which I thought he was a really interesting character as well, and yeah, I like this, and I think it's good we have books about this, because Hermione has people around her that support her. The friendships, they're very important, and her family, and then the psychiatrist, and I think it's good we have a book that it's not just like this assault that happens is not like the end of her life, if that makes sense. But yeah, I liked it. I didn't love it that much. The next book I finished was a book on my Kindle, and that is book 10 in the Haunted Guesthouse Mystery series by A.J. Copperman, called Bones Behind the Wheel. This 10th book was released as an ebook and then also as a hardcover a long time ago, but it's gone out of print. And it, I think, didn't sell enough to make a paperback of, unfortunately. So this last book in the series is an ebook only, other than that hardcover, which is out of print, and I could only find like a second-hand copy for really expensive. But anyway, my point was that in the author's note, I can't remember if it was like the preface or acknowledgement or something like that, it said that he actually was hoping to write more books, because the last 2 books were published by a different publisher, because I presume the original publisher didn't want to do it anymore or something. But after this one, he hasn't made another one, so I guess they didn't sell well enough, which is unfortunate. But this series, it's called the Mystery series. It is about Alison, who owns a guest house. It's like an older house. It has bedrooms. People can spend the night there, but Alison doesn't provide the food, so it's not a bed and breakfast. It's just the bed part, basically. And the guest house has ghosts living in it, which is why it's Haunted Guest House. Well, and this book was another mystery. And in this book, there is a car with a dead person found in Alison's back garden, which is like, it comes out to the beach. So on the beach, they're doing these maintenance works or something, and then they find, by digging up, they find this buried car with a pile of bones behind the wheel, so to speak. And so that's the mystery this time around, and I enjoyed this one. I didn't love it. There were a couple of errors in there that, like, earlier books didn't have that. For example, one time the completely different name was used. Like, I knew based on the context they were talking about a certain character, but they put the name in of another character, if that makes sense. So like there was some little errors like that. But yeah, I liked it. I didn't love it as much as some of the earlier ones, but it was a nice read. The next book I finished is Droombeeld by Loes and Hollander. Now, Loes and Hollander is one of my favorite Dutch literary thriller authors, but this book disappointed me. Now, it started off really good, and I really enjoyed the first half. So we have our character, Maatje, and one day she gets burgled in her house. Is that the right word? So her house gets burgled, but she is in the house. It happens during the day, if that makes sense. And kind of after that, other things start happening. But so you follow chapters from her perspective, but there's also perspective, also chapters from the perspective of Anouk. Yeah, Anouk, who is her best friend, and we also follow a third perspective. But so I really enjoyed the first half. I really love this author's writing style, but the second half, the author uses a plot twist near the end that is very similar as a twist that I've read in one of her other books. Now, I can't quite remember exactly which book it was, so I don't know which book was published first, but either way, I did not like that. And it's not only that, which that's bad enough in my opinion, but it's also that the twist is, with it happening twice, made me realize as well, it's a bit problematic. Now, I don't want to spoil it for you, although most of my audience probably doesn't read Dutch books, but yeah, so that was not, no. Like, so I loved reading the first half, which I read in one day, and then the second day I finished it off by reading the second half, and after I finished it, the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, I was like, no, this is not, no. And so I was quite disappointed because I really enjoyed most of the other books I've read by this author so far. So about this twist as well, I guessed it. I should say that. But it's just a shame because it was so similar to the other book. I can't remember which one it was, but it's one of the ones I've read. And well, it can happen once, but with it happening in two books, I find it's problematic. And well, I can't tell you why because spoilers, but yeah. Let me put it this way, the problematic fact is not with the fact that she repeats the plot. The problematic fact is what the plot twist is. I can't tell you. So if you really want to know, then ask me in comments or message or something. But yeah, I don't want to put spoilers in my videos. So the next book I finished is The Fowl Twins by Eoin Colfer. This is book 1, The Fowl Twins, and this is the spin-off series from Artemis Fowl, which I buddy read last year with Olivia from Olivia's Catastrophe, and so we buddy read this first book as well. But unfortunately, this was nowhere near as good as the original series. The main problem I have with it was the writing style. It's very different and over the top, and it just distracted me from the actual story and characters. Like, it's trying to be like almost making the book. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it. It's not something that I've seen that much in books. It's like the author is the writing style is kind of like a little bit like a narrator talking to you, and then for example the narrator will say, okay, and now we pause this incredibly tense moments and we go back a few hours in time to see what this character was doing, and it just, I don't know, yeah, it just didn't gel with me, and it made me struggle more to get through the book, whereas I was interested in the story and the characters, but the writing style just got in the way. It didn't need to be so over the top, and yeah. Now, I did like the two main characters, so this is about the Fowl Twins, Artemis Fowl's younger brothers, and I liked Lazuli, but yeah. Also, where's Butler? We needed more Butler. There was barely any Butler in this book, like other than a couple of quick mentions. And like, yeah. Unfortunately, I had already bought the second book before actually at the same time when I bought this book. Because I think there was some kind of deal sign. But if I had not already bought the other book, I wouldn't have gone and bought it because I'm not particularly bothered about reading it. but I own it now, so I'm gonna let this sit for a while and see how I feel. But yeah, I was disappointed because I was hoping it would be better, well, really, because I really liked the Ultimus Fowl series. I mean, it was one of my favorite things I read last year, if you saw that video. And so yeah, so unfortunately this month really 3 out of 9 books were low rated books, which is that's a lot for me for some reason. But anyway, well, I mean, a lot for me is that I normally have a lower percentage of books that I rate low, if that makes sense. Like, then I read Morgen ben ik beter by Evert Hartman. This is a Dutch young adult book, but it's written for younger young adults. It is written in 1987, and I'm pretty sure I read it when I was a kid from the library. But then the last time that I went to a second-hand market kind of thing, where I found this book and I bought it, I was like, hey, I recognize that. I read that when I was a kid. I actually also have other books by this author, which I've also read as a kid, but I didn't have this one yet. And the cool thing was, so I got home. This was January 2020, so before the pandemic began in the Netherlands. And it was the last time I went secondhand shopping at a secondhand market, and I so miss it. But anyway, I digress. And the cool thing was, so I got home and I opened up the book, and it's signed and personalized. Look, by the author in the same year that the book got published to people who presumably gave their book away, or, well, I don't know, but that was really cool. I don't have that many signed books. So this book is about Marielle, and it's also about her friend Krista. Marielle one day gets ill and has to go into hospital because the doctors don't know what's wrong. So the story is about her, and it's also about her friend Krista, who goes and visits her in the hospital. And now, I like this book. I didn't love it because at the end I still had a few questions that I feel were not answered. But this book made me feel really nostalgic somehow, that the writing style, and even, I don't know, the feel of the pages and the way it looks, because from this publisher I read a lot of books when I was a lot younger. Now obviously in 1987 I was not old enough to read this book, but when I was when I was a kid, a young teenager, I read a lot of books by this publisher. I was actually a member of their newspaper for a while, their club. Anyway, so I enjoyed this one. I didn't love it, but I liked it. It was nice and nostalgic and a quick read, and it also has some interesting thoughts. Well, some of the characters have some interesting thoughts regarding the health system. Now, obviously, since this was published in 1987, some of that obviously has changed, but it's interesting to think about. One thing I will say is that the Dutch translation of the English R word is in here. Now, I've never heard anyone in the Netherlands call that the A word, the R word, because that's in Dutch it's not a noun. You know, in English the R word can be both a noun, as in you are that, or the other kind of word. In Dutch it's not a noun, it's just a, don't know what it's called in English. That is in here. Now, given that it was written in 1987, and at that time I don't think people were really talking about that, so it didn't affect me personally that much, because for some reason I have a stronger connection in the sense that the English R word somehow feels more offensive to me than the Dutch one, even though that's strange, but, well, maybe it's because I hardly ever hear anyone talk about the Dutch R word. I don't know. They're not quite the same, but it's the closest I can get. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that that's in there. So if that bothers you, then know that it's in there a couple of times. But, well, given that it was published in 1987, I get it. But I mean, I just wanted to point it out. I noticed it. That's it. So yeah, I like this. And then we get to the last book that I read in February, and that is The Pillars of the Earth by Follett. This is book 1 in the Kingsbridge series. Although back when I years ago it was just called Persued, but it's now called Kingsbridge, I think. Anyway, so this is book 1 in the series. And I buddy read this book with Berna from Berna's Bookish Adventures, and we took the whole month of February to read this because look at what a chunk it is. So my copy has 1,076 pages, and Berna's copy on her e-reader has 1,237 pages. So it's a lot. So we took the whole month to read it, all 28 days, because it's a lot. And that also allowed us to read other books alongside it. Now for me this was a reread. So I have previously read books 1 and 2 in this series. But then book 3 came out and I bought it, but I couldn't remember much of the first 2, so I thought I should reread them, but I didn't. Anyway, so then it turned out Berna had accidentally read book 2 in this series, not realizing it, and so she wanted to read book 1 this year, and I said I'd love to buddy read it with you, so we did. So this book, this first book, is basically about the build of a cathedral and about these characters that are involved with that. So here is the synopsis on the back. I should mention this is in 12th century England, so it's historical fiction, and so the book takes place over a large amount of years. There were some characters I really liked, like our good characters. We have Tom Builder, we have Jack, we have Philip, we have Aliena. And out of the villains, there was one character I really hated. But we see the story also from his perspective. So you are in his head, like, and he is just... I looked up my original review that I wrote back when I read this, because I read this in October 2015 apparently. I thought it was earlier than that, but that's what my notes say. And I remember reading this on holiday. Well, I read most of it on holiday. This has nothing to do with the book. I'm just telling you about my experience and my memories of it. So my boyfriend and we flew to the UK to spend time with his family, his mother, and when we used to do that, we haven't been now in a while, but when we did that back in the days that you could just take a plane and, you know, go on a family visit in another country. Though we haven't been in for like 4 years, I think. But anyway, that's beside the point. I took my e-reader and I was allowed to take one paper book with me because, you know, on a plane you have a suitcase. You can't take too much stuff with you. And also, back in those, I loved to actually like buy something nice for myself in the United Kingdom, like books from the British charity shops, and then take them back with me. So I wanted to get there with also not too much stuff, so I would have some space and weight limit in my suitcase to take stuff back with me. Anyway, so this was the book I brought, and so I read, I think, most of this on that holiday. But anyway, I really thought it was longer ago, but yeah. So yeah, I loved rereading this book. And it's interesting, where was I going? Okay, so I was going with this. I looked up my early review when I read this, and apparently I wrote that I already hated William, that's the villainous character. I already hated him back then when I read this book for the first time. That has not changed. One of the things I really liked about reading this book and also rereading it is that you learn about the architecture of churches and this building. And before I read this book for the first time, I didn't necessarily think that was something I'd be interested in. But I read this book and I found it really interesting. I don't know all of the words, the English words used with regards to the architecture of this church. I don't even know if I would know all of the Dutch ones. But it was really nice to learn about that process, in my opinion. And I really like the good characters, if you will. But I hated the villains, but the good, kind-hearted characters sort of thing, those are really nice. So yeah, this took the whole month, and I liked that. So per day we didn't have to read like huge chunks of the book, so that some days I could just read the pages in this and didn't have to read anything else if I was busy or doing other stuff. But if I did want to read more, then I read some of my own books and also the buddy reads that I did, of course. But yeah, I really liked rereading this. So I will say there was a scene in here with animal violence that I found really difficult to read. And I also feel like it didn't need, in terms of for the plot, it didn't need to be written as like descriptive as it was now. I find it difficult to read such scenes. If you find that too, then just know that going into this, those few pages, I skimmed them. Because it's a scene in a market where they're making, I think, this bear fight these dogs or something like that. I can't quite remember because, like I said, I skimmed it because I was just too horrified. And there is also sexual assault scenes in here, which I also found difficult to read. But I remember finding the same things the first time around when I read it, so I was prepared for that more this time, if that makes sense. Like, I knew that was going to come at some point, but I didn't remember the animal violence scene as much, but I do now. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this, and I'm planning to reread book 2 on my own, because Berna has just read that. If that's all without end, I have begun to also make some kind of schedule for myself so I can read it in a month, and then read certain sections each day. But as you can see, I haven't done this bit yet, so that's something to do for later. But I thought I should totally film my wrap up first and edit it and all that. But yeah, this is also a chunker. This book involves, I can't remember exactly, but an illness. Let me put it that way. I can't remember the appropriate English words, but so that should be interesting to reread, you know, with the world being in global pandemic right now. I mean, I say right now, it's been for a year, but because when I first read this, also in October 2015, that was not at all, well, that hadn't happened yet. So I'm really enjoying buddy reading. So I expect to maybe not read as many books as I used to, depending on how things go, because reading this is already going to take quite a bit of mind space. And then I'm also planning to read in March Inkheart by Cornelia Funke. This is going to be a buddy read with Laura. And it's also middle grade March, so I mean, that's not normally, I don't really participate in readathons. If you watch this channel and also other booktube channels, you would know, because I don't really mention that, but I guess now it's a nice coincider. Yeah, not sure if that's the right word. Then I'm going to read Get a Life Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is going to be buddy read with Emily from Novelle Novels. And then I am also planning on reading Written Off by A.J. Copperman with my friend Sarah. This is book 1 in, well, Mysterious Detective Mystery. So we're going to try that. So those are the buddy reads I have planned for March. I don't know what else I will read. It will really depend on my mood. I might also still be busy with other stuff, like playing that video game. Thank you very much for watching this video. Feel free to leave a comment if you like. I like reading nice comments. In my opinion, that's like one of the really fun things about making YouTube videos. Leave a like if you like. And thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye!